I don't want no oil spoiling my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes!
Good morning, Toledo, and good afternoon, wonderful Columbus and lovely Bowling Green. And a big hello to those of you listening on the internet, wherever and whenever you may be. I'm your guest host, Shehbaz Khan, and I'm here with my incredible host,
Rebecca Wood.
and you have had the incredible good fortune to tune into For a Green Future. This show, For a Green Future, is a show where we talk about ecology and the environment, and we talk about them in ways that affect you, your wealth, health, and happiness. We have got a great show lined up for you today. For the next 10 minutes or so, we'll be just chatting. Then we have a very nice interview with Cinda Stutzman about a very unpleasant topic, ticks. Seems like we have a new kind of tick in the neighborhood, and that could affect all of us. Then at the bottom of the hour, we'll hear from our faithful patrons and sponsors, without whom we could not bring you this show. Then we'll hear from Rebecca. Rebecca, what will you be talking with us about this week?
Kemp Ridley sea turtles.
Wow, sea turtles are cute. Very interesting. I'm
They are.
definitely looking forward to it. Forward to that. I love sea turtles. They're so cute. Finally, we have ecological news from around the world, and hopefully, at the same point, we will hear from you. This is a call-in show, and it gets better every time you call in. So call in at 877-909-1007. I repeat, 877-909-1007. So don't wait, pick up that phone and give us a call. So yesterday was Earth Day, and all of us here at For a Green Future got together to celebrate. We had excellent homemade pizza. I had pizza made out of, it was a vegan pizza, and I really loved it. Rebecca, I saw you eating pizza. Did you eat that?
I had the one without the topping, without the
Tofu?
whatever it was. Yeah, you
Without the
could. They
tofu.
got vegan cheese too.
Yeah, they
it's
got
a little
vegan
expensive,
cheese,
but
vegan
you
tofu.
can make it with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. It was interesting. It was very tasty.
I mostly chased Joe's dog. She's into that kind of thing.
Yeah. We also did some chalk drawings and created a solar generated hydrogen explosion. It was really nice. I love to hear that popping sound. It was fun, and sometimes it's great to forget, with all the serious environmental issues we cover, that it is essential that sometimes we have to take time out and have fun. Earth Day is one of the holiday that literally everyone on the planet, regardless of their religion, race, or political belief, even age, or anything for that matter, can celebrate it. it's most important for us to come together and be thankful for this beautiful, habitable planet we live on. It's also important to remember that almost everyone does care about the environment. It seems to be a basic part of human psyche. Children actually seem to care more than us grown ups. So it could be well something we are born with. Even the people who are actually doing things and pushing technologies that are killing the planet, often on a personal level, will do things, say, like compositing or live in houses that are heated with geothermal energy, so on and so forth. Pro nuclear trolls think that they are saving the planet. They are wrong. So very wrong, as we talk about in this show, but they think they are doing a good thing. So there so the belief is there that we have to take care of our earth, and there are hopeful signs that people are finally starting to act on those beliefs. All over the world, even in the United States, heat pump sales are outpacing natural gas furnaces. There were over 4 million households that installed heat pumps last year, and less than 4 million gas furnaces. Heat pumps, both thermal and wind, have been steadily rising, while in the past few years, gas furnaces have been declining. Car sales have passed the 5% mark in the United States. And in places like Norway, they have hit 80%. So more and more people are putting solar panels on their home. A survey by Rocket Homes says that 67% of Americans want solar panels, although only about 4% have them. So we still have a long way to go. So the momentum is there. Things are finally starting to move in the right direction. The question is, how are we moving fast enough? The answer, unfortunately, is not yet. As we reported 2 weeks ago, there has been a sudden drastic increase in the amount of carbon dioxide in the air, CO2. This has finally led many scientists to admit that we are caught in a positive feedback loop. That is, in itself, is a positive development, because up until now, much of the scientific community has actually been in denial. Of course, we are here at For a Green Future, have been thinking and talking about positive feedback loops since the beginning of our show. Haven't we, Rebecca?
We certainly have.
Yeah, and the strength of the positive feedback loop, I believe, is increasing. The amplitude is increasing.
Seems like it.
Yeah. The US is one of the biggest energy consumers in the biggest energy consuming countries in the world. Actually, we are number two. China is now the biggest with 145 billion kilowatts per hour per year. But even at number two, we use almost 3 times as much power as the number three country, that is India. We use 88 billion kilowatt hours, while India uses only 32 billion kilowatts hours per year. So this means we can make one of the biggest differences on the planet in breaking the positive feedback loop cycle. As we have decided before, the key to stopping a positive feedback loop is to stop the input. So, if we stop putting carbon in the air, even now, the incredible acceleration we see of global warming will stop, and the Earth will slowly start to shift back to a more normal climate. It will take about 300 years to get back to normal. But right now, we are still racing in the wrong direction. So, if you want to make the biggest impact, the fastest on limiting of your carbon dioxide and heading off global warming, there are 5 biggest things you can do. Number one, first, get rid of that gas guzzler. if you are driving a big truck or SUV, that is probably the single most carbon dioxide producing thing that you do. Now that there are alternatives available, it's time to dump the truck. Even Ford now makes an electric version of the F-150, the F-150 Lightning. It goes up to 320 miles on a charge and costs around $39,000, but is eligible for $7,500 tax in tax credits. There's also cars like Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid, which give you the advantage of a gas engine for long trips while letting you run all electric for the short trips that make up 90% of people's cars traveling. Of course, the best possible mile of transportation is the mile that you don't drive at all. Walk, take a bike, use public transportation. That way you generate no carbon dioxide at all beyond what you generate while breathing. And we don't want you to stop doing that. Next, second thing, get your house in order. Get your house insulated. Put solar panels on the roof and switch to heat pump. Heat pump heating and cooling. Geothermal is best. But air heat pumps are still very good. And both are better than using natural gas and electricity. Once again, there are huge tax incentives for doing this right now. Once you do this, you can sit in your cozy, warm, solar-powered house and watch David Attenborough talk about saving the polar bears while you know that you have done what you could do to help them. Number
Here we
three,
go.
yeah, polar bears. Third, stop eating the planet. Americans love meat. It's not unusual in an American diet to eat meat at every single meal. It's one of the reasons we are so obese, and one of the reasons our life expectancy is decreasing. Even as life expectancy continues to increase in every other industrialized nation, we are not saving anyone. Everyone should become vegan. We are not saying everyone should become vegan, but stop eating meat all the time, every meal. Beef is the worst because cows take longer to mature. They have to be fed for years before they are slaughtered and take tons of water. So you can actually reduce your carbon footprint by 90% by cutting beef out of your diet.
Wow, I did not know that.
So stop eating beef now. And I have also heard that cows produce lots of methane gas.
They
that
do.
Also, yeah, that also kind of affects.
Of course, so do I, and I get to be here. I don't know. Me and the cow.
Yeah. But we have lots of other animals to eat. I mean, 90% of our farmland is used to grow crops that aren't feeding humans. They are feeding the animals, mostly cows, that we eat. Most of human history, people had about one meat meal a week. That seems unimaginable for an American. But try going the other way. Try to go to a day or two per week without any meat. You'll be amazed at how that helps you in your battle with your bathroom scale. And it will help the planet, of course. Fourth, don't fly. I'm sorry, please don't fly. But taking a jet across the Atlantic puts about 6 tons of carbon dioxide in the air. You would have to compost and recycle for about a century to make up for that. Taking a cruise ship puts about 4 tons, and the amount you have saved by going vegan for about 5 years. Most business trips can be done by Zoom instead. If you do have to fly across an ocean, then try to get on a full plane. The fewer people on a plane, the more carbon per person. In fact, 90% of the carbon being put into the air by jet planes comes from private jets, not the 747s packed with seats and crying babies that we are used to. Private jets put out more carbon dioxide in the air than the 747s. So in Europe, there is actually a movement to ban private jets altogether. A move almost unthinkable in the US, because that would mean billionaires would only be a few feet from ordinary people.
Speaking of crying babies, the big ones that own the private jets are the worst.
And finally, and perhaps the most importantly, care about who you vote for. If you are voting for candidates that deny global warming exists, even as the earth is literally burning down around us, you are not just part of the problem, you are the problem. So I would like to put a quick question here. How many people today think that the summer is late in the United States or in our cities? How many people think? Please let us know. And okay, so coming back to the points we were working on. So we need to vote for candidates who are supporting the fighting for the cause of global warming. They do things like we cannot do to reduce our carbon footprint. They don't make up for what the government should be doing. While we are distracted about fights over who can wear what kind of clothes, Republicans are passing bills like Ohio's SB 83, which would force professors in state colleges to teach global warming denial alongside actual global warming science, as if the two were equally valid. Part of the reason that it becomes so important for us to act individually is that politicians like that have prevented us from acting together as a nation. Freedom does not depend on being able to produce huge clouds of diesel smoke with your truck. Freedom is being able to go wherever you want, when you want. If you want, if you have to do that in quiet, smoothly accelerating electric car instead of a noisy gas guzzler, consider that the price of freedom. Someone who inherits a ton of money is free to waste that inheritance on drugs and fancy cars, but they are then free to die alone, addicted, and homeless. It's also important not to feel guilty about the fact that we have needs. We need to have adequate shelter. We need to have food, and we even need entertainment. Guilt is not that great a motivator. If we feel guilty about something, we tend to avoid thinking about it. Feeling guilty when you put gas in your tank is less likely to get you to switch to an electric car than realizing how cool electric cars are. Without their superior acceleration and maintenance costs that are a fraction of internal combustion cars. That's a point we make over and over again on our show For a Green Future. The green future is actually better than what we have now, and much, much better than the future we are heading for. Geothermally heated and well insulated houses are more comfortable than houses heated with gas. Electric cars are better than gas guzzlers. Eating less meat is healthier for you, and it means you'll live to enjoy your freedoms longer than if you continue to eat beef at every meal. So, we can certainly keep going on our current route, but that will have consequences. One of those consequences is the diseases and pests that exist in warmer areas. Down south will move up here to the north as global warming continues to race ahead. That is certainly happening as we watch species that used to be common, like white birch, they died out and new species move in. A new species has just arrived in northwest Ohio, but it's likely that anyone will be throwing them a welcoming party. It's a new species of tick that can carry one of the new diseases that's spreading in a warming world, Lyme disease. We certainly talked with, we recently talked with Cinda Stutzman about it, and here's her interview.
Yes, my name is Cinda Stutzman. I work for Bowling Green Parks and Recreation. I am the Natural Resources Manager out here at Winter Garden St. John's Nature Preserve.
Tell us about
We are at 120 acres as of a couple of years ago. So, and the park is as big as it can be at this point as far as contiguous land. We've acquired everything between 1940 and 2021. There were multiple land acquisitions over time. So it's a Bowling Green is very blessed to have such a nice large nature preserve here right inside of city limits.
So, what can people expect to see there?
Well, we have quite a few different habitats, and we've been doing habitat restoration here for the better part of 20 years. We have an older growth forest. We have a young successional forest. We have a former farm field that has been turned into a tall grass prairie. We have savanna areas, some remnants of the oak savannas, and we have a wetland and a pond.
Wow. Wow. So, you have a wide variety in that 120 acres. I know people especially love the huge old trees. You mentioned restoration. What does that mean exactly? Can you explain?
Well, what we're trying to do is protect the historic habitats of the region. So we're trying to remove things that are considered invasive species, things that have been brought over from other countries and escaped into our preserves because they take up space and habitat from the things that were here historically that we want to protect. We want to protect our native biodiversity. And some of these plants can be very aggressive. So like one we've been working on for a number of years is garlic mustard removal. The effort being to protect our diversity of spring wildflowers. And then the flip side of that is putting things back into the preserve that would have been here historically that might be missing. So that's where we've done a lot of our seeding of prairie plants out in this former farm field.
So, what kind of plants are we talking about here?
The ones we've introduced little blue stem, big blue stem, Indian grass, switch grasses. Those are the foundation of your prairie habitats, the grasses. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to the flowers, we've been introducing lots of sunflowers and asters, native goldenrods, blazing stars, spiderworts, penstemon. I mean, the list of forbs goes on and on.
You don't just see a uniform grass sort of paddy there. What do you say about that?
No, we're going for diversity, but we're going for both diversity between different habitats and within each habitat. So we have, like I said, all the different habitats you named, and each one of those habitats has a diversity of plants that prefer to be in those habitats. And then when you work on restoring the plants, then you provide a base for the variety of insects and animals, bird species. Winter Garden is well known for its being a little migratory bird hotspot in the spring. Because if you look at it from a bird's perspective, there's only so many places to land and refuel if you're flying all the way from Mexico up to Canada to breed.
So the birds know about Winter Garden Park also?
They do. They know we're here, and they stop, and we have the bird watchers know that they're here too. So lots of people out with binoculars these days.
That's cool. All right.
Yeah.
I understand that it was the middle of some of this restoration work that your interest turned to ticks. Could you describe what happened?
One of our newer staff people was out last spring pulling garlic mustard and looked down and saw a tick on her shirt. and as most of us do when we see a tick, we don't think too much of it. We pick it, flick it off and say, "Be gone with you." But she did take a picture of it and showed it to us, and it is a tick species we had not seen in the park before. And, I've been here for 20 years, and my former supervisor had been here for 20 years. We've been off trail regularly during all of that time. It's a large park, but it's still a relatively small park. So the fact that this tick was here made us think that we need to start ramping up our education regarding ticks with the community, because this species is the black-legged tick, which does carry Lyme disease. So for the last 20 years, when people would say they were worried about Lyme disease or concerned about it, we were able to say, well, the tick's not here, and it's, at the time, over the last 20 years, it wasn't really around Northwest Ohio. However, I've been watching the maps for the last 20 years as well, because every time somebody would bring up that tick in particular, I would go back to the State Department of Health and re-research what was going on from a bigger picture, where the tick is, where people are contracting Lyme disease. And, 20 years ago, it was not here. And unfortunately, it was really just a matter of time before the tick species made it to the preserve. So we always knew that at some point the story would change, and that was last year. Based on the maps, they could be coming from more of the south and east Ohio area, but they could also be coming a little bit from Michigan down into Ohio. And I haven't reviewed the Michigan maps much lately, but yes. So the ticks are moving. They're moving on the animals. There's a lot of people who say that they have encountered the black-legged tick here in Wood County in the last few years. And there's a lot of anecdotal stuff out there, but the state relies on, the State Department of Health, people turning in ticks in order to decide or to categorize where ticks are considered either reported or established. And then there's one person who works for the state, and she goes out and does a lot of what are called tick drags. And that's what we started doing to help the state understand better what's going on here. So yeah, we took, it's basically a very heavy sheet, almost like a blanket, and drug it around the park this spring for about 750 meters. You stop about every 30 feet and flip the sheet over and look for the little buggers crawling on it. And then if you find any, we package them up in a little tiny vial and send them off to the state. And so this past fall, last October, we did our first tick drag, and we sent 4 black-legged ticks down to the state. They were tested. They all tested negative for Lyme disease, but that doesn't mean that it's not in the tick population around here locally. It just means that those 4 ticks didn't have it. But the one thing when we had our presenter come, Leanne Garrett from the Ohio Department of Health, the one thing she emphasized is there's a lot of missing information as to what's going on the ground throughout the state of Ohio. And she's only one person, and gathering that information is difficult. So we're going to keep monitoring the ticks here and sending them in order to do so.
So what should one do? So if somebody is out walking and they find a tick on themselves, what should they do?
Well, if they're looking at it if you're looking at it from a safety standpoint, you just want to get rid of the tick, and you don't want to let it bite you, obviously. And if you're curious what species it is, you can, you can bring it to the nature center. I can help you identify it, or you can take it to the local health department. They can identify it, or you can even send it to the state. But the state is only going to test ticks that are collected with this specific scientific method sampling. So even if you got a tick on you and it fed on you, they still would not test the tick. They will only test if it has Lyme present or absent, if it is collected through these methods. the best thing to do as far as tick prevention is to stay on the trail, and make sure that your dogs are getting their flea and tick medicine year round, because these little buggers can be out on a nice warm late February day. And I know a lot of people like to skip some of these medicines in the wintertime because they think because there is a lower risk, and it does save people money. But if you're someone who lives near the park, or you walk your dog here frequently, my biggest concern is, making sure dogs are getting their medicine and making sure people are checking themselves. Like I said, if you stay on the trail, it's usually not a big deal. But since, as a professional, I go off trail a lot. When we take volunteers out to pull garlic mustard, they're going off trail. So we're trying to make sure every time we take a group of BGSU students out to remind them when the volunteer session is over to check their clothing for ticks, make sure to put their clothing, try to get it to the wash, and take a shower before the end of the day.
Okay, this sounds strange, but ticks do have a place in the ecosystem, don't they? Disgusting as they are.
Yeah, they're a very unloved creature. There's a couple of mosquitoes and a few other things, and different people have different tolerances for some of these creatures. So yes, they are food for other animals. And that is about all I could think of, is because the parasite part of it is, it's beneficial to the Lyme disease trying to reproduce, obviously, but we don't want to encourage that.
Right.
So some of the other things we can do to actually decrease our tick population, and this has been scientifically researched, is prescribed burns will actually help keep tick populations low. There are certain invasive species. They've done the science on certain invasive species, especially Japanese barberry that gets out into woods. It actually makes the habitat better for ticks. So when we're naturally doing our restoration projects and getting rid of some of these invasive species, we're actually making the habitat less hospitable for ticks. So we will obviously continue to do that.
I know that ticks climb up on vegetation and hold their legs out waiting to grab whatever walks by, but it sounds like some vegetation makes it easier for them to do that than other. That's interesting. Can you share some light on this?
Interesting.
Yes. When you have, especially the invasive shrubs that get into some of our nicer wood lots, they can really kind of, there's a lot of them. They'll be really crowded together. So yeah, and their structure can kind of be different than some of our native shrubs. So yeah, we're looking at making sure that we can keep our habitat as well maintained as we can. We're hoping to keep the tick population in check, and just want to make sure we're getting the word out to people that they need to, do a double take and check themselves. And the joke is don't take hitchhikers home with you, which I've done numerous times over the years. It happens. Ticks are sneaky.
So if a tick has already bitten you, how do you deal with one that's latched on?
You want to get tweezers, and you can look at some of these pictures online. What you want to make sure to do is use the tweezers kind of sideways, down low enough, and gently pull the mouth parts out. You do not in any way, shape, or form want to squish the body of the tick, because that will cause the juices in the tick to go into your skin. And it does usually take, they say, anywhere from 24 to 48 hours for a tick to transmit a disease. So you do have time, but some of these nymphs are so small. And I have a friend who got Lyme disease and went undiagnosed for a very long time. And part of the reason she was undiagnosed is that classic bullseye rash that people talk about doesn't always occur. And if the tick bit you in your hair or under, in your scalp, and you never saw the rash, you would never know. Also, locally, the numbers of Lyme disease have been low or non-existent for the better part of 20 years. So doctors aren't necessarily thinking about somebody contracting Lyme locally, but she had traveled. And that's where the disconnect was. So there was no rash. The symptoms were there, but sometimes those symptoms can be they overlap with any number of other ailments.
Bite twice. I think a lot of people don't know that ticks bite twice. They bite as nymph, then they drop off and develop into adults and bite again. That's what you said, right?
Yes. So the way Leanne was talking about it is they take two different blood meals at two different stages in their life. And then like one of the statistic I'm finding the most fascinating from the Ohio Department of Health, and it makes it sound scarier than maybe it is, but the occurrence of Lyme has increased 10 times. There's been a 10 times increase in Lyme disease in the last 10 years. Now, most of that is occurring in the southern and eastern part of Ohio, but like I said, it's starting to make its way into this part of Ohio, apparently. I mean, if you follow some of these things through time, there's actually an interesting website I was looking at for veterinarians tracking Lyme disease in dogs. And you can click on year by year by year and go back through time and see the changes in the counties on the maps over the last 20 years, how Lyme disease in dogs has increased and where it's been spreading.
Well, Cinda, is there anything you'd like to add that we forgot to ask or mention?
No, just don't let the thought of ticks scare you away from coming out to the parks. Just be prepared to, check yourself. Keep an eye out.
Okay, thank you very much. That was our interview with Cinda Stutzman. We are grateful she made the time to talk with us. And we are also incredibly grateful to our sponsors. Let's hear from them now.
The Ecological shop is located at 115 West Mary in Bowling Green, Ohio. They sell lots of different things: cosmetics, bath and body, home and garden, cleaning, towels, knickknacks, candles, fragrances, and more. They sell all of these things without plastic containers. The whole purpose of the Ecological shop is to eliminate plastic. Customers love them. Summer says, "I'm loving the products they offer. It's sensible and affordable, all while being eco-friendly and plant-based, eliminating the unnecessary use of chemicals." That's just one of the glowing testimonials you'll see at their website, ecofilshops.com. Corinne says one of her favorite products is the dish soap. She can't believe how easy the stains come out. If you're interested, give them a call at 419-944-8862 and talk to the owner, Josie, who's very passionate about environmental issues. Or you can check out their website, ecofilshop.com. Or, best yet, you can drop in at 115 West Mary in Bowling Green. That's the Ecological shop. For a Green Future is also brought to you by the Wood County Park District. The Wood County Park District is a natural resources conservation agency. They protect natural spaces, maintain quality green spaces, provide engaging programming, and they teach people to love and respect nature. They also restore wildlife habitats and lead people on outdoor adventures. Wood County Parks protects natural spaces in Wood County for all to enjoy from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset every day of the year. There are several ways to get a hold of them and find out what's happening. One is to call them at 419-353-1897. Another is to visit their website, www.wcparks.org. The website again is www.wcparks.org. They are also available on all social media: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and many others. Just search for WC Parks. That's the Wood County Park District, and we're very grateful for their support.
So, in addition to our sponsors, we are grateful to our patrons. These are the peoples who have gone to the patreon.com. That's patreon.com, and there they selected For a Green Future. Our incredible patronage page popped up, and they chose a monthly patronage level that matched their budget. You are also able to set your own patronage level, so you can give as little or as much as you want each month. So now a small comfortable monthly donation comes out of their account each month and comes over to us. That's how we can afford to keep For a Green Future on air. And one of the things we do with our airtime is give Rebecca a platform to talk to us about an interesting eco topic each week. Rebecca, what are you going to talk to us?
Well, I have something much, much cuter than black-legged ticks. It's Kemp Ridley sea turtles. See, with global warming, you get black-legged ticks. Without it, you get Kemp Ridley sea turtles who are the golden retrievers of the ocean. Really adorable. They don't actually want to interact with you. Don't try and play fetch with them. Anyway, my roommate actually sent me in an article from WLOX, or a short video in, which I think is a TV station in Mississippi. According to the Institute for Marine Mammal Studies, the Mississippi Gulf Coast is experiencing a lot of dozens of sea turtles being washed ashore, which is a lot more than usual. Mostly this is happening in Jackson, Hancock, and Harrison counties. They got 34 between April 1st to April 7th, and their normal amount of dead sea turtles would be about 60 carcasses between February and the end of the summer. So they're ahead of schedule. This is pretty concerning. Possibly, they think it might just be high winds blowing the sea turtles to shore, possibly. They're mostly Kemp Ridley sea turtles, which is the most endangered animal species, I think, in the world. I mean, I'm not sure if they meant in the world or it's the most endangered type of turtle, but it's pretty darned endangered. It's native only to the Gulf of Mexico, has a tiny, itsy-bitsy little nesting range, and only 1 in 1,000 hatchlings grow up and reproduce. And, that's normal for them. They're mostly stuff for other animals to eat. That's kind of their role in life. So they're conducting necropsies with histopathology, which I had to look up, and it meant, as I kind of suspected, microscopic examination of tissues for disease. So they're taking a very close look at them and taking this pretty seriously, doing little animal autopsies on them. And if you see a dead, sick, or injured sea turtle or dolphin, you should call the Institute for Marine Mammal Studies at 1-888-767-3567 and tell them about it so they can come and take a look at it there. So I wanted to know more about Kemp Ridley sea turtles. They're also called the Atlantic Ridley sea turtle. They're the rarest species of sea turtles. Maybe that's what they were talking about. I'm not sure. They're one of two species in the genus Lepidopterus, which sounds like it's related to butterflies, but I don't know what lepid, maybe it means something about flying. I don't know. They sort of fly through the water, I guess. The other one in the genus is the olive Ridley sea turtle. They're apparently named for somebody named Richard Moore Kemp, who lived from 1825 to 1908 and was the guy who sent a specimen of this sea turtle into Samuel Garman at Harvard. And then there was a really technical description of sea turtles, turtle shells, where I didn't really understand, but I learned some new words. There's something called a scute, S-C-U-T-E, which is a specialized plate that sheds or peels away and is replaced in a turtle shell as a turtle grows. I did not know that at least parts of turtles shed like snakes. I guess they have some other plates that stay in place, and just kind of stay the same size, and the shoots grow around them. And there's something called a plastron is in fact the flat bottom of the shell, which is over the turtle's tummy. Didn't know that either. It sounds very science fiction-y. But it's just the bottom of a turtle shell. The hatchlings are apparently dark purple. The adults have yellow, green, or white plastrons in a green carapace. That's the top part of the shell, apparently. So yeah, they're pretty cool. But for my zinger fact here, they're endangered by habitat loss, pollution, and shrimp nets, and also something called oil spills being among the pollution that they have to deal with. There's something called a cold stunning event, which happens because they're going. Oh, this is something else I learned. The adults tend to stay in a fairly small range, like around the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, but the juveniles go all the way over to Morocco and north to Cape Cod, down to Venezuela. The problem is they're going further and further because the oceans are warming up, and then they get a sudden cold snap, and a bunch of them are just kind of floating there in danger of drowning, and they have to come rescue them. So that's bad. But yeah. Fun fact for my big finish here. Fun fact about Kemp Ridley sea turtles. No one knows why they're called Ridley or olive Ridley sea turtles, but they are apparently local fishermen in Texas. I believe refer to them sometimes as bastard sea turtles. I don't know why. It seems a little harsh, but my theory is that this Garman fellow at Harvard who got the specimen and discovered them, whatever. Probably he had some guy in his past named Ridley that he didn't like. It was like his bully in school, or maybe they liked the same girl or something, or claimed credit for the same paper. So he was like, ha ha ha. I will name this Ridley, and no one else will know, but I'll chuckle evilly every time I know that it's a diss against it. Yeah, so that's probably what happened. I feel like just based on my imagination.
That's very interesting.
Yes.
And thank you, Rebecca. I mean, you bring in so much interesting stuff, which gives us food for thought every time we hear you. Thank you for being so resourceful.
I like to learn about
relate
things. I do. It's fun.
well, in my stories, I also have something about a little turtle that is Tortuguita, but it's not actually a turtle. It's a name given to a man. His name was Manuel Esteban Perez Terán. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I apologize if I have messed it up. But this gentleman was protesting against
Cop City, Atlanta, right?
Against the Cop City, Atlanta, as we have been reporting for months about the controversy in Atlanta over the plans to cut down a forest to build something called Cop City, where paramilitary police can practice blowing up stuff and attacking buildings. We also reported a few months ago about the death of one of those protesters, Manuel Esteban Paez Terán, also known as Tortuguita or Little Turtle. He was shot and killed by the police. During the examination of his body, it was revealed that it turns out that he was killed while he had both his hands in air. So that's a very sad news. Please apologize. I apologize for beginning my news with such depressive information. Okay, my second story is from Yellowstone bison retrieval. Our friends at Roam Free Nation have informed us that Yellowstone National Park has responded to massive public outcry and released the 800 bison they had trapped in a building.
Thank heavens.
Yeah, finally they got released. This reduces the loss of the herd from 1/3 to 1/4. Still too many to sustain the herd, but definitely getting better. The controversy kind of continues about unregulated slaughterhouses. Over 2/3 of the bison were killed by unregulated tribal humans, which is still continuing at a reduced rate, even though the season has just begun. A new generation is being born right now. We will have to wait and see if they survive the next year so far. So let's see. That was my second story. My third report is from IPCC report. The International Panel on Climate Change has released its 2023 report, and it's pretty very dire. They say global greenhouse gas emissions have continued to increase with unequal historical and ongoing contributions. Arsons from unstable energy use, and land use changes. They are kind of changing the patterns of consumption and production, affecting the resources. Reasons between and within controversies and among individuals. Basically, they are saying we are heading for a civilization collapse right now. Most of the world is continuing to increase and get involved into it. As the emissions increase, the only bright spot is that they do say it's not too late, but there are ways to survive. It's kind of like a doctor telling an alcoholic you have cirrhosis, but your liver hasn't actually failed yet, and if you stop drinking now, you will live. One very important point is that IPCC has clearly come down on the side of Dr. Mark Jacobson, who says we can reach zero carbon without nuclear power. The report says that wind, solar, geothermal, and energy storage systems are the only practical way to stop generating carbon in time for us to survive. So there is still hope. And my last story is from Antarctic ocean circulation. The Antarctic ocean circulation may collapse. We have reported before that there are fears that North Atlantic circulation in the ocean will collapse. We will, in a report dated April 18th on the Yale Environment 360 website, research was published that shows this may happen in the Atlantic Ocean. Ocean currents flow from one end to the globe to the other, carrying oxygen and nutrients around the planet in a circulatory pattern that is essential for life. This circulation is driven by the places at the poles where there is both high winds and low temperatures. This causes water in those few places to become both cold, and as the water evaporates, more salty. The cold, salty water then sinks to the bottom of the ocean and spreads out, creating currents that pick up nutrients and feeds life in the entire ocean. It has been documented that this process is being disrupted by the North Atlantic. As fresh water from melting glaciers mixes with the oxygen, it makes it less salty. As the atmosphere warms, it doesn't chill the water. If the ocean current stops, the entire ocean will become stagnant pond. This dying will create so much carbon dioxide and methane that us land animals may actually soon follow. So the news that is happening in Antarctica should be enough to convince you to buy an electric car and put solar panels on your roof. So that is it for our show. Sorry there was so much bad news to report so close to Earth Day, but we hope you enjoyed Earth Day, and we look forward to the day when we celebrate having a truly clean, green future. So Rebecca, any last words would you like to add?
I was a little, of course, I always think about, when I hear about ticks, I always think about when we lived in Western Kentucky. And there were ticks, there were poisonous snakes, there were giant snails that would come out on our sidewalk at night. I liked a lot of things about Kentucky, but those were not some of the things. Yeah. I did not enjoy them at all.
Yeah, but like Cinda said, even we hate these species, we dislike them, how bad or ugly they seem, appear or behave, but they are essential for our climate. They are part of our ecological system.
Yep.
Yeah, we should never forget that.
What possums eat ticks.
Yeah,
that's one thing. They're always telling you about possums, and what skunks are great because they will if the skunk has dug a big hole in your lawn and you're mad at it, it probably went after a hornet's nest. That's why they're courageous little critters, the skunks. So that's nice.
Yeah, that's right. Even these, so remember, even these hateful creatures are part of our planet, our ecology, and our lives, whether we like it or not.
And
So
okay, you were telling me at the party, weren't you, that you had been out to South Bass Island where Put in Bay is?
Yeah.
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 I remember the one thing, garlic mustard. I remember about garlic mustard. We went to the nature center when we were there a couple
Yeah.
of summers ago. And they were saying, oh yes, we've had some volunteers picking the garlic mustard, and there was just a crap ton of it everywhere. Just little white flower. They were cute, but apparently they're not good. So
Yeah.
garlic mustard, serious problem. Also in the Lake Erie Islands.
Yeah. So that is going to be it for the day, my dear listeners and friends all over. We hope you stay tuned in next week, and we'll bring you more information and news on ecology. So stay tuned and keep listening to For a Green Future. Love you all.
Good night.
No. I don't want no oil, a spoil in my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things a creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes!